I'm Sadie Sullivan. I'm the Director of Oral History at the Brooklyn Historical Society, which is a library and archives and also museum in Brooklyn, New York. So because I work in an institution that is the library and archives and also a museum, that means that a lot of the oral history collections that I both preserve and provide access to and also build those collections, they really quickly get pushed out to the public through exhibits and education programs, which is a really wonderful dynamic to work with. One of my favorite things in terms of bringing oral history to the classroom, and that's either through a class visit to one of our exhibitions that has oral history where they actually can listen or watch a video. We have mostly audio, but sometimes video oral histories, is you see the students recognizing that this is an individual person who's talking about this moment in the past that maybe they've read about. Maybe it's the Vietnam War, for example, and they know that this is a moment in history, and they know some facts and dates and figures, and you can see it click in their minds that, oh, there was real people, and these aren't just facts and figures and numbers and dates. This was real people who were alive like me, who are experiencing things, and you really see them making that connection of, you know, I am an agent of history in the present, and you just see that happen. And in fact, we've had beautiful conversations with students saying exactly that. You know, I sort of thought of history as this kind of dry, boring thing that was just numbers and dates, and then I realized that, oh, it was people's lives, and someday in the future my life is going to be history. And that's my favorite part, is really explaining to these kids, or not explaining, they discover it on their own, that that their lives are important and that they are making history in being alive at the time that they're alive. Okay, so the Vietnam exhibit, In Our Own Words, Portraits of Brooklyn Vietnam Veterans, which was up for 3 years at the Brooklyn Historical Society, and was this amazing collaboration among the curators at the Brooklyn Historical Society, the oral historian who did most of those interviews, Philip Napoli from Brooklyn College, and an exhibition designer, Allison Cornyn. And what was beautiful about that exhibit is they involved the narrators very much in choices that were being made about the exhibition design and about the excerpts that we were pulling from the longer oral histories. And that was working with that team was really formative for me in terms of how to incorporate oral histories in exhibitions, that involving the narrators is just brings so much to the project, which is not something that I think every museum or every project that's doing public history with oral history, I don't think that the narrators are always involved, and I think that's a really helpful thing to bring them into the conversation, because they just have great ideas in terms of context and framing, and you think you get their story, but they always have this other way of saying, yeah, you get it, but this is another way to, you know, make it more clear what I was trying to express in sharing my narrative. The exhibit was really successful and sort of beyond what we expected. A lot of veterans groups, both Vietnam veterans and returning Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, were really excited to have a space to come with their groups, experience the exhibition, and then that was a great launch pad for conversations about, you know, dealing with issues of post-traumatic stress, talking with your family about your experiences when you've come home, because a lot of the people in the exhibit really made clear that this is not something they talk about a lot, and this is, you know, many years later, and so for the newly returning veterans, that was a really helpful thing to say, okay, yeah, I'm finding it difficult, and look, this person found it so difficult that it took decades, and so I'm doing well if it only took me a couple years, and but mostly we had a lot of conversations also with the narrators involved and the impact on their lives of having their stories heard in not only the oral history collection, but in this exhibition, and seeing the public hearing their stories in maybe a way that they weren't heard very well at all when they were first returning from Vietnam, and that had a profound impact. And then on the youth who have come through, so junior high and high school students and college and beyond, but mostly high school, I think because that's what fit with the social studies curriculum, and that's when they're studying Vietnam. And one of the things that we would hear, two things, two specific people I can remember having these conversations. One was a young man who really did say, you know, I've been reading about Vietnam in my history book, and I just never thought about it happening with real people. And now, meeting these narrators here in this exhibition, I realized that these were real people. And so all of a sudden, the numbers of, you know, casualties, or the numbers of people dealing with post-traumatic stress, or the numbers of people who are overseas in current conflicts, those become real. So that was one really exciting thing to hear from a student who's experiencing this exhibition. The two things that I would say about incorporating oral history into an exhibition is curators and exhibition designers like to make plans well in advance, which is wonderful, but if you're also collecting the oral histories at the same time, it's really helpful to say, hey, slow down on making some of those big decisions about themes and what's going to go on that wall, because we maybe haven't heard the full breadth of stories yet. So we don't want to put these decisions, you know, up on the wall yet if we don't yet know that this is what people are going to be saying. And that's true even if you're involving researchers who have done a lot of historical research for the exhibition. As we know, oral history uncovers voices that are maybe not documented in the research that this historian has done, and that's a wonderful thing, and you want to make sure that your exhibition design plans haven't gone too far in one direction without incorporating what we're hearing from people. And then another thing, which very much on that same point, is to involve the narrators in those decisions and to say, these are the themes that are percolating for us in your stories. This is the direction that we'd like to go with this public history exhibit. What do you think? And really hearing their responses, because that can only make it better. I think sometimes people are afraid to involve too many cooks in the kitchen, but that's not been my experience at all. The more minds you can bring to the exhibition, the better.